Hello everyone, female Frodo Baggins here with Fluffy Cat. It's okay. Today I'm going to talk about something that I am late to the party on, Pixar. We got a brand new trailer for a new original Pixar film called Hoppers. Now, Pixar has come into a little bit of controversy lately because of how they handled the bombing of Elio. And that, for those who don't know, was the biggest bomb in their company's history. And Pixar's response was to actually blame people for not seeing original films, at least according to their Instagram and TikTok posts. And they keep saying that they need Hoppers to be successful. They need this movie to be successful, otherwise they'll be on Toy Story 27. But I gotta say, if this is what we're going to get from Pixar from the future, then I can say they're probably gonna kill themselves on this kind of stuff, and they are not going to have original films that are successful. It looks like Hoppers is on track to be another Elio. Let me explain why. The first thing I want to talk about is the animation of this film, because the trailer plays, and right off the bat, bam! Bean Mouse. Bean Mouse, Bean Mouse, Bean Mouse, Bean Mouse, Bean Mouse. And that is the exact same style that was in Elio, that was in Luca, which was in Turning Red. The same style that people have been complaining about, and instantly I was disappointed by it, and it did not endear me to the upcoming film. But I want to dig a little bit deeper into this Bean Mouth style, Bean Head, Bean Mouth, or whatever you want to call it, that they're doing here. And that online, at least, it's become controversial to talk about, because here's the deal. A lot of people do not like the Pixar Bean Mouse. They vehemently reject it, in fact. But there are certain artists, or people in the artist communities, or animation fans in general, that get very upset when people criticize this style from Pixar, and have actually always been upset since it first appeared in Turning Red. Essentially, their defense for this is that this is a new artist style, and that we should not reject any artist style whatsoever. It's all valid, and back when Turning Red was coming out, I remember the entire excuse for this style of animation from Pixar was that they're exploring something new. But they're not, actually. I've come to know this style of Bean Mouth as the Cal Art style. Now, California Institution of Art doesn't actually teach this as what students need to take into animation studios when they go to work there, but it's just become a derogatory term because this is a style of animation that's being adopted by a lot of modern animation, and a lot of people think that it's something that's just cutting corners with animation. I've read that some people accuse this of being art students or animation students that are just adopting this style. And Disney Pixar, I've read rumors, has been hiring a lot of younger animators lately. But I want to point out, this isn't just a style that's being taken over to Pixar to be Pixar's specific style of animation. You'll find it in a lot of other projects. Steven Universe, for example, is a famous one from the 2010s. It's everywhere in Western animation. So in effect, it actually is not an original creative style. It's not from an original artist who created their own style and brought it to these movies. It's a copied style that has made its way through Western animation in TV, cartoons, and now it's found its way to what is the biggest animation studio in the world. And it wasn't just one film, because obviously they did it for Turning Red, and that's where the excuse was that it was new and they're just trying something different. But they've done it for so many films at this point. Turning Red, Luca, Elio, obviously. But this is not an original style of animation. The funny thing about it is it actually moved away from Pixar's original style of animation. And if you want to look back at different Pixar films, there were similarities, but they did allow variations in their character designs and animation styles for each movie. But essentially, this new Bean Mouth or Cal Art style of animation that has been presented to Pixar has actually moved away from the original animation style of Disney Pixar, and given all of their movies the same look. All of these characters, and I'm not the first one to point this out, look like they could be from the same movie. And essentially, instead of getting new, interesting forms of animation for Pixar, we've abandoned their original styles that actually did allow slightly more variation than this, and we've just completely gotten rid of the identity of those original Pixar movies in their animation for something that is less than. So yeah, the art style of Hoppers is a big turnoff because it is going back to that Cal Art style. And look guys, it's okay to just just say that you don't like an animation style, and that's how a lot of people feel about this bean mouth style. But I think it's a little bit more than just being an unappealing design, and all these Disney animation and Pixar movies starting to look the same with this design that people have made very clear is unappealing. It's showing that they're abandoning the original style that these studios did have. But even more than that, I think that it's about what this animation style is associated with. Elio, I'm just gonna say, from the amount of people bashing Elio, I do not think it was as successful as its Rotten Tomatoes score would suggest, and people did not want to see the film. Turning Red was a very controversial and polarizing film. I think Luca was the safest of these films, but honestly, I watched Luca, and while I thought it was fine, I have no desire to see it again. So there's something more with this animation design than just the style. This animation style is becoming associated with the new Pixar films that people aren't clicking with as much. I want to point out to you the most successful Pixar film recently was Inside Out 2, and while it was a sequel, being a sequel, it was forced to play off of the original animation style that Pixar used to have, that used to be unique to Pixar, and that did a lot better. But this new animation style is associated with all these films that are not clicking with people. So when people see it again, it does not make them excited for this new film. And for me, it also shows how far Disney animation has fallen and Pixar animation has fallen as a company. But in addition to this art style being associated with these films that people haven't really clicked with, the other animation style being associated with the films that people really loved and that have a place in people's hearts, there's more to this movie than just the art style. There's how this trailer is presented, and I want to compare and contrast this with how Disney Pixar used to advertise their original films.
No one was going to hand me my future. It was up to me to reach for my dream and make it come true.
What's going on? I'm just dreaming. Where we are. This isn't a dream then.
We put this into this.
Yes. Guys, this is like Avatar.
This is nothing like Avatar.
Girl, are we vibing? Big boy. What's up?
I understand you.
What you doing, lady?
And they were in the same den.
No.
So it seems that the basic premise from Hoppers is basically Avatar. And I didn't even think of that on my own because the trailer is so insecure, it literally brings it up. It's about a character who willingly undergoes a transformation where she becomes a beaver in disguise and is going to live amongst the animals and presumably learn things about them and maybe teach them something herself. It sounds like Avatar to me, but I wouldn't have perhaps thought that off the top of my head because I'm not a big Avatar person, apart from the fact that this trailer brings it up itself, because they know that they're just basing it off of Avatar here. They feel like it's going to make it better, though, if they acknowledge that and make a joke out of it, and people might not accuse them of being derivative, except it is derivative. But okay, there's not an original idea on the planet. You can have a derivative plot and still have it be really good. But there's other things about this advertising that just don't click with me and remind me a lot of the advertising for Elio and other recent Pixar films that have not worked out. This film really overdoes it when it comes to the pop culture references. It's really trying to sound like a Gen Zer kind of film. It's more how do you do fellow kids kind of stuff. That's kind of how the dialogue and stuff is going on in this film, but throughout the trailer I was just reminded of things that have already been done, like arguing with the animals over how things are done and being eaten just reminded me of The Wild Robot, where it did it a lot better. But essentially this entire trailer is made up of attempted Gen Z humor and pop culture references and derivative story points, which does not make me excited for this so-called original film. And I don't think a lot of other people are excited either. This film is something advertised by its quirky premise, which is what all of the other Pixar films have been doing lately, except for Inside Out 2, which was a sequel, which honestly is the only thing that felt like a Pixar movie in recent days. But I think it's something that has really devalued Pixar as a brand. Because here's the thing. It used to be that Pixar and Disney Animation were put a notch above all of the other animation studios and what they were doing. Why? Well, because Pixar films, and I'll just keep it to Pixar films to keep it simple now, they were really advertised on the heart of their movies. Now, back in the day, you used to have studios like Illumination and whatnot, and when I would see the trailers come up in the theaters and stuff like that, it would be heavily reliant on pop culture references and quirky attempts at humor. And what they would produce is very lackluster, forgettable films. Essentially, what I've called this before is key-jangling films that are just there to distract little kids and not be anything more than that. But Pixar stood out differently. I would encourage anyone who's watched this video and seen the Hoppers trailer to go back and watch the Coco trailer. Now, that was the last Disney Pixar original film that blew up so much at the box office, it almost got $1 billion, completely blowing apart the narrative that people in the modern day would never go see original animated films, but Coco got almost $1 billion at the box office. And if you look at the initial teaser for that film, it is entirely comprised of swelling music and trying to get you to feel the emotion of that film. And what that does is it's pulling on the heartstrings, and it doesn't reveal a lot in the trailer, but it really pulls on the heartstrings of the stories with a lot of heart that you've seen before from Pixar. And that's how that movie was able to build off of the Pixar brand that people had become so familiar with and knew what they like about without being a sequel or anything. That is how Pixar used to be advertised, and that is what set it apart from other animation companies, is because movies from Disney and Pixar were advertised as ones that prioritized heart over anything else. But now when we see Hoppers, once again, it's all pop culture references and attempts at Gen Z humor and about how quirky this premise is. It's completely different than how Pixar used to advertise things. And if you look for the advertisement for things like Elio, it's once again about how quirky the premise is, not telling me about the heart of the characters or anything. It's about how quirky the premise is, first and foremost. The same thing with Turning Red. It's about how quirky the premise is. And that's how I think the advertising and the films themselves have changed from the original Disney Pixar style, is they used to understand that they had a good thing there that separated them from the different kinds of children's entertainment out there. Their focus on having depth to their movies and having a real heart to them and having a substance to them. Like, that was what was implied with these movie trailers, a real empathy and a substance to these films apart from any other kids' films. But they have now abandoned that to an animation style that is starting to look similar to the more cartoonish animation style of other films on the marketplace, and an attitude, a quirkiness that is just like every other film in the marketplace advertised at kids, every other animated film. If you had shown me, and I said this for Elio as well, if you had shown me this Hoppers trailer 10 years ago, I would have said that maybe Illumination made this or something, or some up-and-coming animation studio on a film I would probably never watch. I would not believe you for a second that that is Pixar, because there is nothing about this that patterns itself off of the Pixar style or what works about them or how they portray their films. The maturity in which they would advertise and portray their films, I gotta say. Right now, part of the reason I think Sony Animation and DreamWorks or more so Sony Animation, why I think that they are beating Disney Animation and Pixar is that as of this recording, they have filled the gap in that maturity in animation that we haven't seen. I'm talking about children's animation. Disney Animation and Pixar used to have a maturity to them that treated kids with intelligence that other animation studios did not, and that's what helped them stand out. And they advertised their new original films based on, hey, you remember what these other films have done. This film is going to have the same quality. But now Pixar has completely abandoned that, and they've made themselves look like every other animation studio on the planet. But hey, I haven't seen the movie. This is just a trailer. It could be good, right? Well, I highly doubt that. And once again, I'm willing to be proven wrong, But they're already kind of doing the same pattern with this film that happened with Elio, where apparently it's a really reworked script behind the scenes because Disney Pixar is really reacting hard to people being upset by political messaging in their films. So Hoppers was apparently originally going to be more about environmentalism, and that's what Avatar was about too. I don't know what Hoppers could be about right now, but there's something important I want to bring up even with this idea of reworking films and that might mess things up. There was some controversy over Elio and the behind-the-scenes stuff that we heard because they apparently removed all queer coding from the film and that the original film was about identity and that they changed that and uprooted the film in order to avoid controversy. And everyone has been talking about that aspect and how they feel about that aspect, but there's something in that article that was revealing about Pixar that people have missed. That what spurred Elio being changed was the fact that they did a test screening for the movie, and during that test screening of the original version of that movie, not one person who they asked, they polled everyone, not one person said that they would pay to see the movie in theaters. So that original version of Elio, before they reworked it, it sounds like it would have been a disaster too. And that's the problem with Disney Pixar. I don't know what black sorcery they did to have anything decent or anything that came off of like traditional Pixar storytelling and animation in Inside Out 2. And it wasn't even that groundbreaking. It was the only Pixar film I've enjoyed of late, at least. But it seems like Disney Pixar is at a place where they can't make a good movie. They just can't make a good production behind the scenes. So before, a movie like Coco, once again, was advertised on the fact of, you know all that Pixar has done, you know how good they can be, come see this original project, and it worked. But now I only associate them with very mediocre, throwaway kids' films. They can't make anything work. They've abandoned everything that would make me identify any of this as Disney Pixar. So yeah, I'm not expecting Hoppers to be good because of their track record, and if it bombs, it means they are going to fall off on what they already have planned, which is Toy Story 5 and Incredibles 3. But even if that is a relief to go back to a original animation style of Pixar, and they have to because they already had a pre-established style, then I'm not expecting the writing to be any good because it's clear that they do not have writers behind the scenes or maybe producers who are working with the writers who can make a good script to a good movie anymore. Pixar has completely lost what originally made them actually Pixar. I would want to support original animation and hope for the best, but when I see a trailer like Hoppers, I just see them staring down the barrel of another Elio. And it's a shame to see. I would hope that they can dig themselves out of this. I mean, I remember back in the 2000s, the early 2000s, I should say, that was another time where Disney animation, for example, was not really considered the cream of the crop. It was a time when Disney animation, talking about them, not Pixar, was really trying to transition from 2D animation to 3D animation, and they were coming up with a ton of failures. Disney animation was not beloved at that time, but they came out of it with Tangled and Frozen and movies like that shortly after. But you know, it's been a while since we've gotten something really stellar from Pixar, and it's really sad to see how far they've fallen and wondering if they're ever going to find their way back for that or when that will happen. But that's all I got for you guys today. What do you guys think of the animation and analysis that I've done about Disney's Hoppers, and where do you think Pixar is headed, and what would you do to get them out of this? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. It is Fantastic 4 week, so please stay tuned for more videos on that, and I will see you guys next time.